One of the biggest reasons why your chiropractic clinic may not be doing well is who and how you are hiring. And the topic of this podcast is 5 reasons why your chiropractic practice is not thriving.
Dr. Duncan says, if you want to know about business, health, and places to go, welcome to the show. Yeah, welcome to the show. If you know that you want to grow your business, your practice, and portfolio, welcome to the show.
Hello, and welcome to $1 Million Chiro, the podcast for chiropractic practice owners. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Frances Duncan, founder and CEO of Simply Southern Chiropractic Center in South Carolina. I'm a chiropractor by trade and an entrepreneur's body. I'm excited to guide you through this journey at the crossroads of chiropractic care and the art of successful practice management. If you haven't already, check out my website, milliondollarchiro.co, where you can access all of our previous podcasts, online courses, and gain more insight on one-on-one coaching with me. And don't forget to stay connected by following us on all social media platforms at $1 Million Chiro. You can listen to $1 Million Chiro, the podcast, on all popular streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Ultimately, if you enjoy what you're hearing, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a glowing 5-star review. Reviews allow us to hear from our listeners and what interests you. Now, let's get to the backbone of it all. Welcome, everybody. Today, I'm going to be interviewed by my executive assistant, Kelsey, and the topic of this podcast is 5 reasons why your chiropractic practice is not thriving.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be on here today with Dr. Duncan. I'm typically on the laptop making sure everything's running smoothly, so I'm excited to be in front of the camera with you today.
Yes, this will be a good one.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's just go ahead and hop on into it. So the first reason I want to talk to you about, Dr. Duncan, is running a PI only or PI heavy practice is a reason why your practice isn't thriving. So kind of talk us through why people think it's okay to run just a PI practice, and also maybe explain what PI is.
Yeah, so PI is personal injury. So these are patients that chiropractors treat that usually have been in a car accident. Not always, the person could have been a slip and fall case and you're treating them, but most of the time, personal injury cases treated in a chiropractic office are from car accidents. We're here in South Carolina, so this is an at-fault state. And so we usually get patients from attorneys. They send us patients or they recommend our office to patients. And we treat these patients on a lien so the patient doesn't pay. And we get paid once the case is settled. So this could be several years down the road, but the lawyer gets paid once the case is settled. And then we get paid our portion once the case is settled. So I have seen practices that so there's there are pros and cons of personal injury cases. The pros are you usually are going to get paid well. These cases can bring in several $1,000s a piece. But there are multiple cons of personal injury cases, in my opinion. So number one is these cases can take years to get payment on. So, in South Carolina, the statute of limitations for these cases are 3 years. So, that's a minimum in some cases of how long it could take for a case to finish. I've had cases that have gone 5 and 6 years because they've gone into litigation. So you can't rely on payment for these cases immediately. So you just, in my opinion, in our office, we do personal injury cases, and then I tell our doctors and I remind myself, just do the case, treat the patient, turn in your records, and then forget about it. Like, put the case on the top shelf of a closet and forget that it's there, because you never know when you're going to get payment for these cases. It's not a reliable source of income. So we've gotten, $20,000-$30,000 worth of personal injury payments in a month before, but then we'll go 6 months and not get any. So you just never know when those cases are going to finish. And I think it is hard to sustain a healthy practice when you don't have regular maintenance patients coming in that you can expect revenue from. Other cons of personal injury cases are, in our experience, these patients typically are not going to go into maintenance care. The reason for this is because when they're treated in our office, they're treated on a lien, so they don't pay. But we are only able to treat for a car accident case until the patient meets maximum medical improvement, which is MMI. And so once we hit MMI and we suggest maintenance care for these patients, they have to pay for that, and they're not willing to come in after that. It's hard for anybody to see the value in something if you're not paying. That's why I don't recommend doing free things for people, for promotions and things like that, because if you don't have any value associated with your service, then people aren't going to value what you do. So those patients, personal injury patients, usually aren't going to become maintenance patients, and that's how you get a thriving, robust practice, is through maintenance patients that you can schedule out. And then lastly, this is not always the case, but personal injury patients, they are a category of their own. They are interesting people. And so I just can't imagine having a practice where that's all I did was personal injury. And so those are just, there are more reasons, I'm sure, but those are the big reasons why, if you are trying to run a personal injury practice because you think you're going to do well and make more money, because these case values sometimes are higher if the patient doesn't have health insurance that covers chiropractic care, you can get more out of these cases. Even with reducing your bill, you can still get paid well, but you don't know when that payment's going to come. And here's another reason. So say your patient has a lawyer and they fire that lawyer and you finish treatment. Well, good luck trying to find that patient for payment, because it's going to be hard to find them, and they're probably not going to pay you. So that's why I recommend, if you do personal injury patients in a at-fault state, to work with attorneys that you know and trust. And then in other states where it's a no-fault state, these patients still, you may get paid well, and you may get paid well directly from the car insurance company, but those patients are probably not going to stay patients in your practice. And we need maintenance patients that believe in chiropractic care and they know the value of it to create very strong, thriving clinics.
Absolutely. And I want to talk, before we keep going, because I know we're going to be mentioning maintenance care pretty often in this podcast, because we are such advocates for it over at Simply Southern Chiropractic Center. But kind of talk us through what maintenance care is for someone who's never heard of chiropractic.
Sure. So when a patient typically comes in our office, usually they've never been to a chiropractor before,
right.
But they're coming in because they hurt for some reason. And yes, initially we have the patient come in more frequently in the beginning. A typical treatment plan for us, would be 3 times a week for a month. Then we drop the patient to twice a week for a month. And then we drop the patient to once a week for a month. And sometimes they can start, at twice a week for a month and then work their way down. But we have to do enough work in the very beginning to change structure and to change muscle memory in the body. And then once we get the body in alignment where it needs to be, it's a whole lot easier to maintain proper alignment than to go back and fix major root problems. And so once we get to a patient, to a stage where they're stable, then we will start to push their schedule out. So we might start seeing them after their initial treatment plan. We'll recommend maintenance care typically, and we may see them every other week, and then we push them every 3 weeks, and then we push the patient out to once a month. We typically don't go past once a month. I think everyone needs to be adjusted regularly to help their immune system in their body and to keep them feeling great. I need to be adjusted at least once a week with what I do in my job. Treating patients is a physical job. And so I need chiropractic care myself, and I believe that my patients do too, and it can completely change your quality of life when you have regular maintenance chiropractic care. And so that, it's hard. You have to educate your patients on the importance of chiropractic care and the importance of maintenance, because, we don't want to wait until we are in our late 60s and 70s when we realize that we don't have any mobility left and we're losing mobility. That is, chiropractic can help put a Band-Aid on problems at that point in our lives, but we need to start earlier if possible, and we can prevent issues, and we can fix root problems. When the younger we are, the easier it is to fix root problems. And that is a very hard concept to explain to personal injury patients, because they think, even with the education that we give, they think, I was in a wreck, I'm getting treated just for this wreck, and I'm going to have to pay in maintenance care. No, thank you.
Yeah, and I feel like it's hard for them to see past that wreck too. It's like, I'm coming in because of this, not because I'm in pain just in my day-to-day. And so it's hard for them to see, like, I'm doing this to take care of myself and my future self.
Mm-hmm. And the goal with any patient is, we've got three, chiropractors, this, we have 3 stages of chiropractic care. So number 1 is pain relief, and that's going to happen pretty quickly in the beginning of initial treatment plan. Stage 2 is stability. So we are going to, the pain may be gone. So pain is the last thing to show up. It's the first thing to go away. And now that the patient's feeling better, we are trying to stabilize the spine to fix these root problems. And then phase 3 is maintenance or wellness care. And so we want to get every patient to that. But, sometimes personal injury patients sort of stop once we get out of phase 1 or 2.
I see. So let's talk about, let's say, for instance, we have a PI chiropractor who owns just a personal injury case type of business, and they're listening to this podcast. What would you say to them about, they're like, I'm ready to change them, so I'm ready to start seeing more people than just these PI cases. How would you encourage them to start seeing other patients and how to get more patients in the door?
Sure. So I think it's going to start with your marketing. So we get a lot of patients, and I think a lot of practices do, from their existing patients. So say we have patients in the office, they tell their mom about the practice, they tell their sister, their cousin, and then you start to see people from these families. And I think you may need to change your marketing and who your audience is.
Right.
And so we want to get more wellness-based patients where, yes, they probably are going to come in because they hurt in the beginning, but if the patient is paying, there's more value to your service. And as you educate your patient through the initial treatment plan, they are more likely to stay on for maintenance care. And I'll say this, like, it's going to be slow. So, there's no quick fix for this. There is no silver bullet, and it takes years to build a robust, thriving maintenance chiropractic clinic. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's hard, but it's very rewarding. And if you do have your patients stay for maintenance care, I've got patients that have been with me for almost a decade. I know chiropractors who've been in practice 20, 30 years, and they still have, some of the same patients. And that it's just slow over time. And if you are a PI clinic and you're seeing a bunch of personal injury patients, if you can just get a few patients that you may be able to get into maintenance care every month, that your practice is going to start changing, and it's going to start looking a little bit different. But I will say, for doctors that are PI only, you'll be able to, it's going to relieve some stress, because if you have patients that are on your books that are maintenance patients, you're going to know when your revenue is coming in the door. So, I know it can be very stressful when you are owed, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in personal injury payments, and the cases aren't settling, or there's a problem with the case, or they can't find the client. And so that is very, very, very stressful. I mean, running a chiropractic clinic is stressful enough, but being scared and worried about when your money's going to come in the mail, and the attorney may have said that they sent your check and they didn't, or the insurance company said that they would pay you in full and they didn't. And so that having a maintenance chiropractic wellness-based clinic eliminates some of that stress. And then the other thing is, think about this. Say you're a PI clinic and you're getting your referrals from, a handful of lawyers, and say a new chiropractor opens up down the street and they are willing to cut their bill more than you are, and that attorney leaves you and they start sending their clients to them. You're up a creek. You are in a mess. And what happens if your attorney gets in a car wreck and they stop seeing clients, or these relationships that you've built with these, handful of attorneys, you don't have relationships with them anymore, and your practice is totally reliant on them. I mean, you are in a mess. And so having a practice that is wellness based, you can have some personal injury patients, sure, but I would my rule in our clinic is I won't let any one of our doctors run more than 10 PI patients at a time. So personal injury in our clinic is less than 5% of our patient base, maybe even 3%. And so, yes, those cases are great when you do get paid on them eventually, but we are not reliant on that payment from personal injury cases to pay our staff, pay our employees, pay our operating costs.
And I feel like that cuts out the middleman too. It's like chiropractors have a skill that obviously nobody else has. So cutting out the middleman of communicating and getting these clients and these patients through a lawyer versus just having the ability and treating people for just the fact of being well. And I think that's really beneficial.
Yes, and even in states where it's a no-fault state and say you don't need to use an attorney, you're going to get, if you're marketing to people that have been in car wrecks and that are in pain, that is, you're going to, what you market for is what you're going to get. Those patients are going to leave when they're out of pain. And so if you market more towards a wellness sort of clinic, I think patients understand, once you educate them, that chiropractic can help in their life, in other areas of their life, and keeping them well as we age. I think that's easier with patients that aren't coming in just from a car wreck. We see this too with just a little side note with pregnant moms. We love treating pregnant moms, and if patients get pregnant, and say we had a patient and they were an existing patient before and they get pregnant, they understand the value of chiropractic care throughout their life. But if we get moms that come in just because they're pregnant, we deal with these same issues too. They think, chiropractic care is just for pregnant moms. So even with education, we sort of see that too. So.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to the second reason why your practice isn't thriving, which is being open odd hours. And I feel like this is something that even as a patient and as just a typical civilian, I see chiropractic offices are not open at convenient times when people are working 9-to-5 jobs. So Dr. Duncan, kind of talk to us about why it's so important to be there for your patient base.
Well, I know that chiropractors have some weird hours, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? What have you seen? This is sort of funny to me.
Well, Dr. Duncan and I make plenty of spreadsheets, and I am doing plenty of research on different chiropractors in our area, just so we can contact them and make sure that everybody has a great community. And so I've done plenty of research on hours, and I've seen, we're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 2 to 5. And it's like, how do you have patients that can come in at any other time? And maybe, and I'm curious for you too, do they have specific patients that they just see at those hours and that's what they're okay with? Or is it something that they just kind of are open and they just hope someone walks through the door?
So, yes, I do see a lot of chiropractors that have non-traditional hours. And so the first thing I want to say to address this having odd hours totally affects who is able to come into your clinic and the amount of patients that you have. So your practice is not about you. Your practice is about helping people in your community get better through chiropractic care. This is just like your wedding. A wedding is not about you. It's about your friends and family that are coming to celebrate you. And if you think for 1 minute that wedding is about you, you are wrong. I don't care if you're paying for it or not. That is a way for everyone around you to celebrate you. And so you want to cater to, your guests that are coming. And if you want, just a little side note again, if you want to have a special day just for yourself, then go and do that yourself. But if you're going to invite guests, it needs to be about them, as much as it is about you. But same thing with your clinic. You're here to serve people and you're here to get people in the door. And if I work a job from 9 to 5, I say I'm a patient, I cannot get to your office between 9 to 5 during the day. If you're asking me to come 3 days a week, I cannot take off of work that much time. And, maybe I could come during lunch, but I see chiropractors that are closed for 2 hours at lunch.
Right.
And so, if I work 9 to 5, then I can come before work. I could come at 7:30. I could come at 8 o'clock. I can come after work, 5:30, 6, 7, 7:30 in the evening. And so chiropractors, you got to be open. And so, and when you first open or when you first start changing your hours, you're not going to be busy all the time. But if you're open and you have the availability, give it some time, give it a couple years, you will fill up in these spaces. And so in our clinics, we're open a lot more now. But when I first started, my original schedule was Tuesday through Saturday. We took off Sundays and Mondays, but Tuesday and Thursdays were open 10:30 to 7:30. So we really saw patients from 10 to 8. Wednesdays and Fridays was 8 to 5, and then Saturdays were open 8 to 2. And we were the absolute busiest, and we still are at night from 4 to 7. We are slammed. And on Saturdays, we are slammed. And then the morning times, they did fill in. But we're open when patients can get to our office. And, you just got to be there. You can't expect people to, we can't expect people to cater to you and your schedule and this life that you want. That comes years after doing this. You got to be open for your patients. And I learned this from my dentist, Dr. Derek. He's in downtown Greenville, and he's a mentor and a friend of mine. And he told me when I opened, he said, if you aren't open at night and you aren't open on Saturday when you start, you're not going to do well. And my mother she was a teacher at the time. She's retired now. She also said that to me too. She said, if I'm a teacher, I cannot get to your office before 4 o'clock, maybe 5, and I won't come. Like, if I was a paying, obviously we're treating her, but if she was a paying customer, she's like, I couldn't get there, especially if you want me to come in 3 times a week. So chiropractors, be open for your patients. And then once you've been open 15, 20, 25 years and you have a following of patients, yes, those patients are going to come when you're open because they want to see you. But if you haven't been open that long, you've got to change your hours so that you're there. And I just want to get into this a little bit too. Work-life balance. If you're a business owner, forget it. Like, you're not going to have work-life balance in your first 5 to 10 years. You got to hustle and you got to be open. And then your life can change as your business grows. But saying that you can have it all, I see this stuff on social media. Have it all. Have your practice. Take vacations. I say this, the grass looks greener on the other side because it is fake. You have to work hard. And yes, you're going to have to sacrifice your family sometimes. You're going to have to sacrifice your spouse, time with your spouse. If you want your business to be successful, you've got to be obsessed with your business, and you're going to have to be open. So that's reason number 2 why your clinic is not successful.
And why do you think, where does that idea come from? Because even looking into all the businesses that we have in this area for chiropractic offices, it's very common for really odd hours to be a part of their practice. So do they learn this in school? Is this something that just is something that they want?
I think I don't know if it's taught in school, but it sure is talked about in school. But as chiropractors, if we want to be treated like medical professionals, do you see your primary care doctor open from 9 to 11 and 3 to 5 on a Wednesday? No, they're not open those hours. They're open regular hours, and they're open later sometimes. So you've got to be able to get in. I don't really know where this came from, but it's a terrible business. It's terrible business advice. So
absolutely. Let's go ahead and hop into reason number 3 why your practice is not thriving, which is not discussing maintenance care in the initial treatment plan. And we talked about this a little bit, but I really do think that we can go into this even in more detail. So why is it so important, Dr. Duncan, to talk about maintenance care to your patients? I know we talked about what maintenance care is, but why is there value in talking to your patients about this?
Yeah, so to have a robust, thriving wellness clinic, we want to get patients to maintenance care at the end of their initial treatment plan. So a lot of your patients are going to come in because they are hurting, and it's our job to educate them on what chiropractic care is, why they're in our office, and why it's important for them to continue chiropractic care. And so if we don't tell our patients why they need continual care, who's going to tell them?
Right.
It's not going to be their medical doctor. It's not going to be, something that they see on the internet. So we have to tell them, and we have to help them. And, do patients have to come? This is the question we get all the time. Do I have to come back for the rest of my life? Well, no, you don't. But you sure are going to feel better if you do come in, and we're going to prevent some mobility issues as you age, and we can prevent you from unnecessary surgeries and perhaps unnecessary medications that we maybe take for pain. And so we want to educate our patients on this, and this starts on day 1. You cannot wait till the end of a patient's initial treatment plan to talk to them about maintenance care and expect for them to become maintenance patients. That's not how it works. So the patient is probably paid a good amount of money in their first 2 to 4 months of treatment, and they are not, they feel like in their head that they are better. We understand as chiropractors that pain is the last thing to show up. It's the first thing to go away. But just because you don't have pain does not mean that you don't have dysfunction and things that we need to work on. We want to fix root problems and not put Band-Aids on things. And sometimes we have to keep treating, even if a patient is out of pain, to fix those root problems. So we want to make sure that we are educating the patient on this. And so in our office, we talk about maintenance care on the first day. When the patient meets with the doctor, we talk about it just a little bit in the review of findings. And then throughout a patient's treatment, we are planting the seed for maintenance care. So we usually talk to the patient halfway through their first month. We have like a little check. It's like informal. We have a check-in, and then we talk to the patient again at the beginning of their second month, because the patient starts to think, well, why am I still coming in? Because I'm feeling better. So we have a check-in point there, and then we check in again in the third month. So by the time the patient is at the end of their initial treatment plan and you recommend maintenance care, they're on board and they understand. And so a lot of times the patient will even ask us before we get to the maintenance care talk, well, what do I do after I'm finished?
What's next?
What's next? What are the next steps? And we have a very, very high conversion rate from our initial treatment plan patients to maintenance care patients. I mean, it's 85-90% of patients. And so that is just from education. And if we don't educate our patients, who's going to do it?
Right, and it's hard for me to understand chiropractors not talking about maintenance care, because we do it so much in this office. Even when I started, I was just, as a patient, I didn't even know the first thing about chiropractic care. So going into maintenance, I had no idea that was the next step. So why do you think that chiropractors don't talk about maintenance care from the beginning?
Well, I think it comes from a good place. I think chiropractors, we don't want to sound salesy. We don't want to sound like a used car salesman. So, and I think there's fear there in asking for money. So, but chiropractors, just, if you don't want to sound salesy, then don't be salesy.
Right.
It's our job to educate our patients. If we're not educating them, who is going to do it? And you can talk to them about, the importance of maintenance care and not sound salesy. And if, just have a conversation with your patient. Think about this. If it was your mom or your dad or your sibling, you would recommend maintenance care for them. So just talk to your patient as if, they're related to you, or somebody not that we don't care about our patients, but it's somebody that's really close to you. You're just going to tell them straight up, Kelsey, you need to be in here. I know that you can benefit from chiropractic care, and this is what I recommend, and I'm going to push your treatment plan out for the maintenance phase portion of this, and just be very honest and open with them. Don't be gimmicky, salesy, but you can't wait till the last appointment to do this. You got to start you got to plant the seed and grow it throughout the initial treatment plan.
Because I feel like that's when it gets salesy. Is when it's like, oh, it's the last appointment. Let me talk to you about maintenance care. And that's when it feels like, okay, so this is where you want me to spend more money in order to get adjusted, instead of just talking about the importance of informing your patients on why chiropractic care is so important.
Yeah, and for doctors out there, that if you do have smaller clinics, which is totally fine, I don't suggest that you talk finances with your patient. You do need to have at least one person in your office, an assistant, that is going over the financial portion of a patient's care. And that separates you from the patient from their money. And I think that helps with not sounding salesy. So you are only talking about the clinical portion of their care, and you need to let your front desk take care of the rest. Now, make sure that your front desk know what to say and they understand what maintenance care is, and that you need to get your patient scheduled. But let the front desk do the financial portion. And when you get a patient to maintenance care, when you talk to them about maintenance, your patient will go up to the front desk, have your assistant at the front desk, talk to them about what maintenance care is, what the price is going to be very upfront with them, what they're going to get, and then go ahead and schedule. This is the key. Schedule the patient out for an entire year. So in our clinic, if a patient, usually if they were a 3-2-1, they came in 3 times a week for a month and then they dropped down. A lot of times we're going to put the patient every other week for 6 months, then we'll push them to every 3 weeks for 6 months. And depending on the patient, we may keep them at every other week, and we may go ahead and put them at once a month. So that just depends on the patient. There's no cookie cutter formula for that. It's just what your patient needs, and that can change. But schedule them out for an entire year. The patient can change their appointments, but if they're on the books, it helps them schedule and it helps them get the time slot that they want. Because in our clinic, 5 o'clock, everybody wants 5 o'clock and 5:30, and we don't have a lot of those spots. And so if that's when you can get into our clinic, when you have scheduled out for a year, you have that spot. And so, we don't make people, and this is just, this is me. I don't make people pay in advance. We don't pay for a year in advance. You pay for the services that were rendered, but we do have your appointment on the books, and we do have a cancellation policy where if you don't show up to your appointment or you cancel less than 24 hours before your appointment, you will be charged the cost of your appointment. And you've got to enforce your cancellation policy, and to do that, you've got to have a card on file. So, but go ahead and schedule your patients out for maintenance care for a whole year.
And that transparency is something we talk about. I mean, I've stood at the front desk plenty enough times to know that we are very transparent on, we're not trying to, this isn't gimmicky, this isn't sales pitchy, we're just trying to put you in a spot for your appointment that you like, and that you can make it to your chiropractic care and it's convenient for you. Like we mentioned above, being open in not just the odd hours. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, tell the patient what they need, and then they can take it or leave it. A lot of times they're going to take it, but if you don't want to sound gimmicky, don't be gimmicky. Don't be salesy.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the next question, our next step, which is the other next reason why your chiropractic practice isn't thriving is because you're not being professional. Dr. Duncan, I know that you are very passionate about professionalism in the office. So talk to us about give us a list of some key things that you consider unprofessional in chiropractic offices that some other people might do consistently.
So if we want to be considered legitimate as chiropractors by other medical professionals, we need to act and dress like other medical professionals. We need to act and dress like medical doctors. We need to act and dress like DOs. We need to act and dress like, a professional dentist. And so first impressions are lasting impressions. And when a patient comes into your office, they're looking at your clinic. Is it clean? I can't get over the clinics I go into, and the bathrooms are nasty.
Yeah.
Clean your baseboards. Spend time. You don't need to have dust caked on a ceiling fan. That's nasty. And so if I'm a patient and your office isn't clean, I'm immediately thinking, have you washed your hands?
Mm.
Do you wash your hands when you go to the bathroom? That is what is going through my mind. And other women too, they're thinking the same thing. So, having a clean professional space, it doesn't have to look sterile. Our office looks very homey, welcoming, and warm. You can check out our website or our social media, Simply Southern Chiropractic Center, to see that. It doesn't have to be a sterile feeling environment, but it does need to be clean. So first impressions are lasting impressions. So doctors, look like doctors. Cargo shorts, absolutely not. Yoga pants, absolutely not. Flip-flops, absolutely not. Would you see a medical doctor wearing? I'm like laughing right now inside thinking of my medical doctor wearing cargo shorts, flip-flops, like, I don't even know, like a t-shirt or something. Like, come on, be professional. Like, you wouldn't, your accountant, your lawyer, they're not going to wear these things. Now, in our office, we don't wear denim. That's the thing with me, and I think it's just how I was raised and grew up. The denim bothers me, but you can wear nice denim, like a dark denim. No, not without holes and things. Use your discretion for that, but. And then men, some practices wear golf shirts. That's fine. We don't, in this clinic, the guys don't wear ties or bow ties or anything, but they do wear dress slacks and a button-down shirt. And then for females, it's very business casual, but we're more on the business side than the casual side. And so I know we want to be comfortable, nice dress shoes with the rubber bottoms, totally fine. But you need to look professional. Like, I can't get over what some doctors are wearing. And scrubs, if you want to wear scrubs, that's fine. Just make sure that you're put together. They're clean. They're not wrinkled. You don't have dog hair on them. And that, you're sort of put together. Come to work. Like, first impressions are lasting impressions. In my mind, if you are paying me for a service, I'm going to look good. I'm going to fix my hair. I'm going to put the time and energy into putting on some makeup. I'm not going to look like I just got out of bed, because you are spending money and spending time with me. And so this is part of the service that I provide. I'm going to show up for you, and I'm going to care, and I'm going to respect your time, and I'm thankful that you are a patient of mine, so I'm going to show up. Now, if I'm paying you, I may, I don't probably look my best, but that's the difference. If somebody is paying you money, you need to look well. Same thing for if you're a staff member listening to this. If you're getting paid to do a job, show up and look your best. You're getting paid for that time. Like, you need to respect yourself, and respect yourself and put some time and energy in how you look. To me, it's just, you got to be clean and just show up for your patients, and however that is for you, that's fine. That may be different for someone than it is for someone else. I'm not saying we have to dress up like, have our hair and makeup done like Dolly Parton. Like, I understand that, but let's just be clean and put together and look professional. So, yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. And I think that so chiropractic, whether we like it or not, it's sort of fringe anyways. And we are becoming more and more mainstream. But if our patients already have a preconceived notion about chiropractic care, and they come into your office and you're wearing, like, I don't know, a yoga bodysuit, and like, just, I don't even know, just weird things with a bunch of crystals on and all. I mean, what are they going to think? So, your current chiropractic patients, they know and understand what chiropractic is, and they probably love you as a practitioner. But if this podcast is about growing successful chiropractic practices, and if you want to be successful, this is part of being successful, is being professional.
Absolutely, and I'm a big advocate of the way you dress is the way you feel. And so I just feel like even on our side of things and the chiropractic assistants, the wearing the scrubs and showing up looking clean and professional is such a proactive aspect in how you're going to go about your day. So it's super important, and that just might be a takeaway from my end of things. So, yeah.
And we just addressed how your office looks and how you look as the doctor. So let's talk about how we carry ourselves. There are things that are not okay to talk about with your patients. Again, this is a podcast about running successful chiropractic practices. It's probably not professional to use profanity in your office. It's probably not professional to, and there's rules about this, to be dating your patients. It's probably not professional to be talking about politics with your patients. Whether or not you think you know your patient and what their political views are, I can guarantee you that you don't know all of your patients' political views.
Yeah.
Because I have very, very different political views than a lot of our patients in this office, and they would never know that, because out of respect for them and, being professional, we are not going to talk about, this next election that's coming up. It's not appropriate. If you really want to grow your clinic, it's probably not very appropriate to talk about, even though, I probably have the same views that you do about vaccines. It's probably not appropriate to talk about that with all of your patients and to post that on social media. Again, the general population probably sees chiropractic as sort of a fringe sort of medicine or therapy. And again, if we want to run successful clinics where we are thriving and robust, we don't want to isolate people that may be on the edge about chiropractic care. On your professional social media pages, we don't need to talk about politics. We don't need to talk about vaccines. Do I feel the same way that the chiropractors listening to this podcast do? I probably do on some of these issues, but we need to stay neutral so that we don't offend people in our office. So, you just gotta use your judgment here, and we've got to be professional. How would you like it if your medical doctor started talking about politics and they were on the other side of you, and you wouldn't feel good. You wouldn't leave feeling the best that you probably should. So put yourself in your patient's shoes, and just because you think that you know how they vote or how they feel, I can guarantee you that for some of your patients, you don't. They're putting on a front.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to ask you kind of with this question, let's say, for instance, we do have a chiropractor who's listening who is just like, I understand that, but I presented myself in this image and now I want to change into a more professional image. What would be some quick and easy things for them to do to adjust how they approach the professional aspect of things?
Well, the easiest thing is to change, your outward appearance if you are not dressing professionally. So the only sort of exception to that would be, say you are a gym-based chiropractor.
Right.
I see you would have to wear some athletic clothes. But one of my very good friends from chiropractic school that I love so much and have so much respect for him, and he's in our town. He has a more sports chiropractic sort of clinic, and they've got a gym in there, and he still dresses professional. So I don't really think there's an excuse. I think that he holds himself very well. He's very professional. He's very put together, and he looks like a medical professional should.
Absolutely. All right, so our last and final topic that we're going to be chatting about as to why your chiropractic practice isn't thriving is you do not employ competent staff. So, first, let's talk about competent staff versus hiring just to hire.
Yeah, so one of the biggest reasons why your chiropractic clinic may not be doing well is who and how you are hiring. And Kelsey, the more that we have these podcasts and we talk to other chiropractors chiropractors and practice owners do not realize how important hiring is.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't just want to hire to have a body in your clinic. As a doctor, you are not going to be with the patient sometimes as long as another staff member is that's in your clinic. And so your staff are a representation of you, and you've got to make sure that they have great customer service skills, but you also have to make sure that they are smart, that they are competent, that they are able to do the job, and that they're not going to make mistakes with your patients or hurt your patients. We want to avoid malpractice claims. And if you can have, I'll tell you this from experience. You can hire cute little CAs that, are beauty queens and they look real nice, but if they don't have any brains, then your clinic is going to suffer from that. Like, you can't just hire based off of, oh, she has a bubbly personality and she looks cute. It's like, no, we need someone that's got a decent IQ and that can critically think. And that's going to help you grow, and that's going to, your patients will be confident with these people in your office. And so you can't really grow if you don't have competent staff. And this goes for doctors too.
Absolutely. I feel like our staff, and I rave about our staff because we have incredible staff, and so does Dr. Duncan. We have, our staff is beautiful as well, but our staff is intelligent, and that's the first thing I tell anybody when I'm talking to someone about our clinic, is that not only do we have fantastic doctors, but our staff and our CAs are just smart.
Yes. And listeners, I didn't start out this way. I've been open almost 10 years. It was a rocky road for the first 5 or 6, and hiring is a skill. We are not taught this in school. We are not taught this even on the job. You have to learn from experience. And so this is why, so for listeners, I have created an online course for chiropractic practice owners, but this is a big thing that I hit on, is hiring. And on our website, we do have the free hiring funnel about how to hire and how to get good quality candidates. And that little free piece of literature is gold. That is like a 10-page document that took me a very long time to write up, but it is all the information on how to hire successfully in your clinic. And even with that guide, you still are going to have to go through some trial and error and learn from experience, but we've just got to get people that are smart in our offices. And I don't think we realize, as practice owners, we spend so much money. Say you get a staff member, you do all the training, they're there for 6 months and they leave. If you go back and look at your books, the money that you spend on Indeed for recruiting, for training, for fixing problems, fixing mistakes. We buy scrubs for our staff, 2 pairs of FIG scrubs. If you add those costs up, it is very expensive. So it's tens of thousands of dollars in our case, in our clinics, because we've got a lot of staff members. But you want to sort of get it right, and you want to hire good people that are going to stay with you for a good amount of time. And my clinic was not always like this. I have learned from experience. I have made mistakes. I learned the hard way, and I want to help you. But the last since COVID, we've had a solid team. I love everybody on our team. It's a joy to come to work, and it wasn't always, but it sure is now.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about what are some key things that you're looking for when it comes to competent staff. I know that we also have a hiring funnels podcast for both of these, part 1 and a part 2, where we get to kind of dive into all of the hiring aspects. But let's talk about what you're looking for specifically when it comes to the competence aspect.
So first of all, whoever you hire, whoever you are interviewing, they need to be on board with chiropractic care.
Right.
So we'll get assistants in here, and I always suggest that you take your staff through a new patient experience. So first of all, that's part of their compensation. It should be. And second of all, do the whole new patient first day with your staff members, do the review of findings day with your staff members. And if you want to treatment plan them or put them on a treatment plan like your regular patients, you need to do that. But if we get staff and they don't like a therapy, or it hurts, or they don't see the value of it, they need to be out. So they've got to believe in chiropractic, and they've got to know that it helps our patients, because if they don't believe in it, then they're not going to help your clinic grow. So that's number one. So number two, they've got to be able to listen and be coachable. So we can teach skills, even chiropractors. I can teach doctors adjusting skills. I can teach you how to take x-rays. I can teach you x-ray positioning. I can teach you how to write a report. I can teach you how to write an x-ray report. But what I cannot teach you is hard work, work ethic, personality, honesty, loyalty. Those things come with you. You're wired with those things. You learn that from your parents when you were growing up, or in your home life growing up, and those things come with our staff members. So we want to make sure that our staff members have those good qualities, and then we can sort of teach the rest.
Right. So talk to us. I know that you just mentioned previously that this is something you've learned. Talk to us how incompetent CAs or anyone else around that has negatively affected your practice.
So a patient can get hurt.
Yeah.
A patient can get burned on stem because we didn't make contact with the stem pads to the skin because there was a bunch of hair. Cut the hair. We need to and if the patient's really hairy, then we need to ask the patient to even shave the area. But if we don't have a staff member that's telling us that information, then we're going to have, a malpractice issue. So, first of all, we can hurt somebody. Second of all, an employee that's not on board and not competent, that may be spending their time gossiping or whispering or cutting up with other staff members. I'm not saying that we don't have a good time at the office, but you don't want someone who's going to stir the pot and who's going to be toxic, because one bad apple, so one bad employee, can make the whole bushel sour. And so we want to make sure that we've got staff members that know their purpose, why they're here. They know they're changing patients' quality of life, and that they can critically think and use their brain when we're on the job with, this patient has, hair. We need to be careful where we put the stem pads. This patient is on a blood thinner, which the doctor has told the patient, and it's an alert in their account, so maybe we shouldn't go as hard when we're doing Graston. We've got to use our brain here.
Yeah. And like you just said, kind of the last little question I have attached to this is, say, we're hiring right away and we're going through the hiring funnel, and we mentioned this in the hiring funnel podcast as well, but talk us through the last little bit of this, saying that, they just started the position. What are some right off the bat red flags that you can see with an incompetent hire?
Number one, if you already went through how much the job pays, and they're asking you about payment, or they're coming, this is what I get. This is a red flag. First paycheck. Employee comes in my office, says, Dr. Duncan, I need to talk to you. Something's not right with my paycheck. I immediately know we got problems.
Yeah.
Something's not right. And if they're asking you guys, go ahead, go listen to the Hiring Funnel podcast. There's 2 hours worth of information here. But if a person, when you're interviewing, is asking you about money all the time, even though you've gone over that, that's a red flag. It's going to be a problem. This is one. Our best employees, they want to be here and they want to work. And, we have employees that'll, we may try to give extra hours. We offer our employees overtime if they want it. But if you get an employee that's just started and they'll say something to you like, I can't come in to train, even though they knew they were supposed to train in the beginning. I can't do that. I can't train. That's the only time I have at home or with my family, blah, 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 blah. They aren't going to be a good employee. They're here for a paycheck and they're here to leave after that. And so not that we're asking our employees to work 24/7, but you want somebody that's going to be a team player. Now, as a practice owner, you've got to respect your employees. If they are willing to come in and are willing to work, don't overwork them. But we want employees that want to be here and want to help us grow as a team and as an office. So those are some things that, I'm like, this isn't going to work out. But we're talking about competence, and that really refers to intelligence. And we just want to make sure that our staff make smart decisions. If they, can't remember patient names when they're on the screen, or we can't pass our laser exam, or we can't, pass Dr. Duncan's boot camp, our 6 weeks of training. I mean, these are problems. Your employee's probably not competent.
Right. And like Dr. Duncan said, we just touched the tip of the iceberg with this podcast on hiring. So please go check out the Hiring Funnel Podcast Part 1, Part 2. Look at the digital download on milliondollarchiro.co. There is plenty of additional information if this is interesting to you. So, all right, Dr. Duncan, anything else with the 5 reasons that your practice is not thriving?
Well, I think there's a whole lot more that we could get into, but These are 5 big reasons that I see very common in chiropractic clinics. So just with the last one, I want to say this. If you don't have good doctors, I don't care how pretty your clinic is, how nice your staff are, how great your customer service is. That's only going to go so far. If your doctors can't adjust, and if your doctors can't help your patients get better, and they're not true believers in chiropractic care, your practice isn't going to grow. You have to have good chiropractors. And if you are a solo chiropractor in your clinic, make sure that you're always sharpening your skills. Make sure that your adjusting skills are top notch. Go to classes, go to seminars, do whatever it takes, but you've got to be smart and competent yourself. You can't just pop and pray, like adjust somebody and hope that everything gets better, because that's not always the case. Sometimes there's other things wrong with your patients, and you've got to be able to catch those things. You may not know what they are, but you need to be competent enough and open enough to refer them to where they need to go. I'm not saying you have to give the patient up. You can co-treat, but you need to be smart enough to know if there's a problem that you need to get help. So final words.
I love those. Those are some good final words.
And that's a wrap on another episode of $1 Million Chiro, the podcast. I hope you enjoyed diving into the world where chiropractic care meets successful practice management. I'm Dr. Mary Frances Duncan, your host. Remember, you can find all of our previous episodes, online courses, and details about personalized coaching with me on our website, milliondollarchiro.co. Stay connected with us on social media at $1 Million Chiro to stay updated on all things chiropractic and chiropractic practice management. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to $1 Million Chiro, the podcast, on your favorite streaming platforms and leave us a 5-star review. Reviews help us grow and continue delivering content tailored to your interest. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep aligning your goals with your actions, and let's continue building $1 Million chiropractic clinics together. This is Dr. Duncan, and I'm signing off.